nobody thought about overweight hammers.
8 kilo soccer ball?
So I brought that, and I brought the philosophies back with me, and I try to implement some of those things that I learned over there throughout. So 77, a young kid, Philip Spivey and Mark Spivey started, they came to me, they knocked on my door and said, "We saw your photo in the paper, can we come and train with you?" I said, "Well, I train in Yarra Park, I'm there at this time, you turn up and I'll help you." So that's how I started to my coaching. So Philip Spivey ended up making the Commonwealth Games, him and I made the Commonwealth Games together. A coach and an athlete making the team. Not only then did I coach him, but I coached Vince Muccitelli, that was in competition with Sean, and I think like Peter Brebner and a certain number of others, and Hammer was starting to come into it, into this, and there was a lot of integration, like talking and people passing on ideas. We had Peter Sheeny come, stay a while, and for me, as an athlete, I finished in '82 after the Commonwealth Games, but then I coached Philip to a bronze medal in '86, and he made the 1990 Commonwealth Games, and he was a 71-metre hammer thrower. So, how would you say, passing on of ideas, working together, getting together, camps, very, very important. But we haven't had a lot of help from a lot of people, have we? We really have to do it ourselves. I find it very frustrating. I'm coaching still elite athletes and that, but I'm doing it on my own in Ringwood. I don't get a cent. I don't get any vote. I've got all the hammers and the wires, and I pay for it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Nobody else pays for it. And that's the problem is, trying to sort of get AA or somebody to basically say, okay, we're going to help throws. They haven't helped me for Ben, for Scott, or for anybody in the sense of that. So we really have to do it ourselves in the sense. I did it myself. I went and lived in Germany for 2.5 years. And that was the beginning of my career, my athletics, my whole life in a sense. So I made the commitment to go. And basically, sometimes you guys have to make a commitment to go, to learn the movements better somewhere else.
But there are ways.
But never forget.
There are ways we can help each other, like where to get wires cheaper than anywhere else. We get a network together.
It's
That's the sort of thing
listening to Gussie about commitment, drive to go somewhere and better yourself. And I'm going to tell the story, Peter. It's about you. Peter,
It's the one that cleans doors.
I've listened to so many Peter Farmer's sermons over the years. It's not funny, but Peter, I forget which year it was, but he was training in preparation for a major championship somewhere. The Russians were in town. He knew the Russians were in town. He knew that they were going to train at this field sometime during the day. He knew that they trained out. No idea of the time they were going to train, and he turned up.
Yep.
It was Sedic and who was it?
It was Litvinov.
Sedic, Litvinov, all the colleges. And Peter said to me, I wanted to train with them. I had no idea how to get in contact with them. So I just turned up. I got my bag. I turned up at 7 in the morning. I sat there and waited. And he was prepared to wait. Wait until the afternoon or wait as long as it took. Luckily, I think he said I turned up at 9 or 10 in the morning.
Yes.
But you shouldn't have to do that nowadays. The world's changed a bit, but I guess that's an indication of how committed Peter was at the time. Just to have exposure to some of the best blokes, or the best blokes in the world. Make that phone call. Don't be shy. Get nervous. Ring them up. You'd be surprised what sort of relationships you can build with these people. Have a shared understanding, a shared love for the event.
The image that I still have watching Uwe Bayer training a 4-turn throw toe turn back in 1971, 72. I still got that in my head. Watching him, the rhythm that he had. To throw his 75 minutes back then. That was just before Schmidt threw 76.40 and threw set a world record, and then he threw the 79.30 a couple of years later and that. But Hansi Fasel, another guy that trained with us and that. But at Bayer Leverkusen, I go back to it, there was a guy from Uruguay, who was South American champion of the hammer. The Spanish champion of the hammer was there as well, so that was a good group. And that's the thing. But I look at, say, my squad at the moment, and basically when the youngsters come and train with Scott, or Dale, or Ben, it's watching a live video. There it is in front of you. the best that you can get in Australia. And so it's so important to sort of not be backward and coming forward and saying, you know, hey Gus, can I come up and train with you for a week or so, or a couple of days or whatever. We're always open to, this sort of stuff and that. So basically, just looking and training and feeling and...
It's just got me thinking. He's in Melbourne, he's in Sydney,
Yeah,
he's in
he's in
Adelaide, I'm in Canberra. There's
That's
4 places nearby that you have access to there.
And there are other people who are out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
who have the same interest. I think if you look at the U.S. tennis model, U.S. tennis went down for a period of time, and what they did was the coaches who are still out there out in the regular towns, they're coaching their kids, but they have regional areas where those who need to get a little better, need to be encouraged, they have regional coaches. Now they have an official system. I think the issue is people working together is really the most efficient. And I remember going to French training camps where you had the Russians who'd come in, Bondarchuk and Sedek, and they would come in, and the coaches, even though, I don't like him and I don't like him, they're there. They get to listen, they may disagree on things, but their athletes get the product of it all, because the coaches, we facilitate, we are not the end product, it's you, the athletes, who are the end product. And we get, as I said to you guys yesterday out there, I'd like to see you all throw 80 meters. And I think the only way you get that is with support. Some of the things that are being echoed here. You also have to have a little courage too. If things aren't going well, you need to go somewhere else. You may have a coach. This is something that we all have a little issue with. We may have a nice coach that we're working with. If it's just not working, it's not that you have to become enemies, but go talk to somebody else. You may be able to come back to that coach and say, listen, I got this idea, or I'm doing something, because it's a development of you. It's not a philosophical statement. It's actually what we all did.
Well, it's an interesting, can I make one interesting point at the moment? Everybody's asked me, do you still coach Ben Harraden? Why? Because, he's in Germany. I said, I sent him over there. I realised 3 years ago that basically Scott wasn't going to throw the discus. Neighbour wasn't going to throw, a couple of others and everything else. He needed a different stimulant. He needed to work through other people and actually go into the overseas European circuit, compete, learn, tough, the whole lot. So basically, we're still, Jürgen Schul is helping him, but I think I'm still his coach in a sense, but we're working together in a way. So I don't mind passing it on. So basically, it's worked, because at the Commonwealth Games, 65 and a half in that shit bloody stadium, that was a great performance. And I reckon it's related to making the step for him. He needed, the first step that he did was to come from Newcastle to come and train with us. He improved from 56 to 65. But he didn't have the stimulus of the competition. And he got that in Germany. Okay.
I think of a couple of things, and the reason's been 100 with me, and the intensity, just the intensity in that club situation or a training situation like that is amazing. You guys will probably find yourselves this weekend, you're all together and you all want to sort of show off a bit, and maybe throw that a little bit further, and that's the sort of vibe, sort of feeling you want to have. But when you're in a group of people that are at a slightly higher level or a much higher level, it does feed off onto you. It's hard training by yourself. I did it for many, many years, and I needed to go over and train with people that were working at a totally different level, because it does lift you up. Absolutely.
Do you remember in 1999 having the discussion in Seville, you and I? Where do you need to go? I said, you need to throw with people who are constantly throwing at the furthest level. And where can you go where they may support you, may help you? And that's when he went to Hungary. After he'd already been to Germany.
1999, there's a club similar to Biomedical called Double Esche. They had in the hammer alone, the men's hammer, the number 2, 3 and 4 ranked hammer trials in the world out of the one club. It was Gajcek, Amush and Neville. And that's the place to go. So I went there. I'm not saying you have to move overseas. I'm not saying you have to go and pack it with fun and take off. You just want to use opportunities like this weekend to feed off everyone else, to lift each other, and make the most of them to lift your intensity.
And just a point, if you watch the Australian Open tennis, and you had the Scottish guy, Murray was playing against the guy who won it. Okay, and he won in competition, but they trained together. You know, and that made those comments. So, you know, competition is quite different from actually the training environment. One of the things that we really need to do here, I think this is a lot better than when I left back in 1971, but not by much. Okay, I'm talking about you guys are there, and we never had that in 1971. You've got pockets around the country where people have been doing jobs forever, standing on Windy Hill. It's time, and it's also time to get, it's one for all and all for one. We're all in it together, you know, and I was retired. I mean, seriously retired. It was only because of the guy at the back that I sort of came out and said, yeah, I'll help him in the discus. And then I got a couple of other kids. And my time is very precious now, I'm getting older. But the issue is, I've enjoyed this weekend, and I've enjoyed just giving you what I have availability, including my energy, and I'm quite willing to become involved. But it takes a group. It's not one person, it takes a group. And we need to be recognized as a group. So.
Can I make another point? There's an issue raised yesterday, and this is very important for a throwing network, throwing group, is that as what we want to try and wish to progress ourselves forward on an elite level. There's a bureaucracy up there which is willing to cut us off at the frigging knees by restricting our access to fields, venues, pages, etc. throughout Australia. I'm the order of the Professional Teachers Association in New South Wales, and the national body have been for about 25 years for one of them. And that is a body of a not-profit association, not union-based, but not-profit for passionate teachers. And that body is basically takes subscriptions from every teaching association in the state, and its goal primarily is just to lobby the state to stop each new Minister of Education cutting the education off at the knees again. So part of what you and the network will need to achieve is to be able to build an agenda so that someone decides that basically discus is too dangerous in schools, javelin's too dangerous in schools, etc., to be able to put together a very, very nice lobbying package at the state education level and I can probably assist in that regard to the PTA, which I was thinking to find out who to talk to get in there to try and get those things changed at the state education level. Because if we don't watch out, basically, the only thing we'll be throwing at school carnivals in 10 years' time is chocolate. It's funny, you can have 15 kids killed each year playing each brand of football, including soccer, but one person gets hit with a throwing implement every 10 years and is put in a hospital, basically, they want to list you as a dangerous sport. So that's another thing, basically.
That's one side, yeah. Take that into consideration. My answer is, we've talked about officialdom a little bit. My answer there is expect nothing and don't be disappointed. I wasn't in it to make money. I wasn't in it to wear tracksuits. I wasn't in it for any of those reasons. I was in it because I wanted to throw far. You can still throw far. You can still make a commitment and linking with each other and throw it a long way. It's very easy to, and I did it early in my career, it's very easy to lose heart when things like this happen because you can't use a field or whatever. It's very easy to waste energy on officialdom. You know, it could be officialdom in relation to funding, it could be officialdom in relation to people who are actually officiating on the weekend in the club or something. It could be all sorts of things. But one thing I've known, and I'll suspect these guys will say the same thing, there's been an aspect of that in the sport for a long time. I think if you go into most sports, it's there. I learned toward the end of my career that I'm not going to waste energy on those sorts of things because it is an emotional time and it is heartbreaking at times.